outcomes. Society trains you to believe networking is a virtue, that progress comes from connection, and that upward movement requires visibility, sociability, and presence. You are shown images of private dinners, strategic handshakes, curated circles of high-value people. The implication is simple: expand your network and power will eventually reward you. But that narrative is not designed to elevate you. It is designed to stabilize the structure. It keeps ambition busy without threatening the center. Every real power system runs on the opposite logic. Those who hold power do not expand their network. They reduce it, not because they are antisocial and not because they lack skill, but because power cannot coexist with openness. Every additional relationship introduces obligation. Every casual interaction creates leverage in the wrong direction. Accessibility is not generosity at the top, it is erosion. People with real authority do not try to be known, they decide who is allowed to know them. Access is the currency. Control of proximity is the mechanism. The more difficult it is to reach someone, the more valuable that reach becomes. This is not a personality trait, it is structural necessity. At lower levels of the hierarchy, networking is praised. It is labeled proactive, ambitious, emotionally intelligent. At higher levels, the exact same behavior is decoded as positional weakness. When you initiate contact, follow up, reintroduce yourself, or maintain relevance, you are communicating a single message in the language of power: I need this connection. And need is always visible. Need always flows downward. This is the paradox most people never confront. The stronger your urge to network, the clearer your lack of leverage already is. Those at the top do not seek entry. They define entry. They are not trying to be included. They are the boundary. The powerful are not loud, friendly, or constantly present. They are selectively absent, and their absence creates tension. Real power does not require explanation or validation. It does not need to be performed. It operates silently by shaping what happens when it is not in the room, when decisions slow down without you, when progress stalls in your absence, when alternatives feel risky. That is power. And none of it comes from social expansion. Power is not measured by how many names you can list or how many messages you exchange. It is measured by the cost of excluding you. When ignoring you becomes a strategic error, relationships no longer need to be built. They reorganize themselves around you. This is why those who truly hold power are quiet, distant, difficult to access, and uninterested in being perceived as approachable. They do not talk about relationship building because relationships, for them, are a consequence, not a strategy. They do not operate inside networks. They define the structure the network must adapt to. And this is the buried charge few are willing to face. If you are actively trying to build relationships, there is a high probability you are unconsciously declaring your lower position in the power hierarchy, not through words but through behavior. Networking exists not because it is effective, but because it is necessary for social order. This is the part rarely stated openly. If networking truly elevated people into power, it would be far more restricted, far more controlled. Instead, it is promoted everywhere. It is taught publicly, packaged into books, courses, and seminars, and sold as a mandatory skill for anyone who wants to rise, not because it is dangerous, but because it is harmless to real power structures. The first illusion is the belief that relationships create opportunity. Reality works in reverse. Opportunity moves toward existing power or leverage. Relationships follow as a byproduct, not a cause. When nothing is lost by excluding you, every connection you form is provisional, replaceable, and structurally inferior. You are tolerated, not needed. The second illusion is that knowing many people is an advantage. In low-level networks, this can appear true. But in high-power structures, excessive connections signal a lack of boundary control. Power does not require many links. It requires a small number of connections positioned precisely at points of constraint. Quantity of relationships is almost always evidence of unclear position. Those who matter do not circulate, they anchor. The third illusion, and the most dangerous, is the belief that meeting the right person will change everything. This is the perfect sedative. It convinces those below to wait for the correct moment, the correct contact, the correct mentor. It postpones confrontation with reality. In actual power dynamics, no one hands power to someone who cannot threaten loss. There is no right connection. When you arrive with nothing, that shifts the balance. Influence is not gifted. It is conceded under pressure. Society requires these illusions to maintain stability. Networking converts ambition into safe behavior. Instead of building position, people are encouraged to socialize. Instead of creating leverage, they are trained to generate likability. Instead of becoming unavoidable, they learn to become pleasant. Every step feels productive. None of it is destabilizing. This is the core mechanism. Networking does not produce power. It produces the sensation of progress for those who lack power. It keeps motion without movement. Meanwhile, real power operates quietly through selection, exclusion, invitation, and silence, through who is summoned and who never is. Power does not expand its network to search for people. It narrows its network to filter them. Reduction is the strategy. Elimination is the signal. And once power exists, networking appears automatically, but only as a one-directional approach from below. At that point, it is no longer relationship building. It is an attempt to be accepted. This is why power holders never talk about networking. They never teach it. They never recommend it. Because from their position, networking is not a tool. It is noise generated by those outside the center. So this must be stated plainly before moving further. Networking is not a path to power. It is a game designed for those without power, to keep them occupied, hopeful, and stationary while believing they are advancing. Networking does not originate from strength. It originates from uncertainty about position. At its deepest level, networking is a psychological response from those who do not control where they stand inside a structure. When you do not know your position, you attach yourself to others to locate it. When you lack clear leverage, you borrow relationships to simulate security. Networking is not a strategy. It is a self-soothing mechanism disguised as ambition. Every act of networking revolves around one core fear: being left outside, not being invited, not being informed, not being considered when real decisions are made. People do not network because they want power. They network because they fear exclusion from a game they cannot fully see. In the language of power, there is an unspoken signal that is always read correctly. The person who initiates contact, maintains communication, and actively keeps the relationship alive is signaling that their position is not strong enough to pull others in naturally. No amount of politeness or refinement alters this signal. In every hierarchy, the one who needs more sits lower. Networking deceives people through the sensation of movement. You stay busy, you meet people, you exchange information, your calendar fills. It feels like progress. But power is not measured by activity. It is measured by the weight of absence. If you disappear and nothing destabilizes, your networking was peripheral noise. There is a dangerous confusion between being familiar and being feared. Networking makes you familiar. Power emerges only when others begin calculating the risk of proceeding without you. Familiarity produces comfort. Comfort dissolves power. Those who hold power do not seek to be liked. They create a controlled level of unease, just enough that their presence cannot be dismissed. Observe how power reacts to two types of people. One appears constantly, initiates relentlessly, and maintains contact. The other appears rarely, but every appearance is tied to resources, decisions, or structural change. The first is recognized, the second is remembered. And in power dynamics, being remembered always outweighs being recognized. Networking also feeds an ego-driven need to be seen. Those without position often confuse visibility with value. They believe that sufficient presence, closeness, and familiarity will earn relevance. Presence, closeness, and familiarity are believed to earn relevance. But power does not operate on emotion or goodwill. It operates on leverage and dependency. Without dependency, there is no power. This is why networking is especially seductive to intelligent individuals who have not yet controlled a bottleneck. It gives them the sensation of participating in a larger game while keeping them safely contained within permitted boundaries. They are not blocked, they are not rejected, but they are never chosen. This is the cold law every power structure obeys. Within any network, the one who needs the most relationships is always the one with the least power. The moment you no longer need to be remembered is the moment you begin to become dangerous. And when power arrives, the need for networking disappears on its own. Not because you became virtuous, but because the rules changed and you are no longer standing at the edge. Machiavelli would never ask how many people you know. That is the question of someone standing outside power. The only question that ever mattered to him was this: who is forced to account for you when decisions are made? In Machiavellian logic, networking is not a tool for creating influence. It is a signal that influence does not yet exist. Those who hold power do not expand their social circle in search of advantage. They manufacture advantage first, then allow relationships to form naturally around it. Relationships, to Machiavelli, are a byproduct of power, never its source. Machiavelli did not build networks, he built leverage. And leverage is always asymmetric. A relationship only has value when one side loses more by the absence of the other. If your disappearance produces no cost, then every connection you maintain is ceremonial, not power-based. Those who chase networking believe power comes from acceptance. Machiavelli understood the opposite. Power comes from the ability to refuse without consequence. When you can decline, not appear, not respond, and the system must still adapt to you, that is position. The one who cannot say no is always below. In Machiavelli's world, the powerful do not introduce themselves. They are approached, not because they are warm or agreeable, but because they control something others need or fear losing. This difference marks the boundary between the player and the played. The one who networks is asking to enter the game. The one with power already wrote the rules. Machiavelli also understood the hidden danger of networking. It exposes intent. Every proactive approach reveals desire. Every maintained relationship creates obligation. Every obligation is a restraint, and the one bound by the most restraints is never the one in control. Power requires space to maneuver, not a web to become entangled in. This is why real power is difficult to read. It speaks less, appears less, explains nothing. It does not need to be understood. It needs to be accounted for. In Machiavelli's eyes, ambiguity is an asset. It keeps others uncertain of boundaries, and uncertainty itself becomes leverage. If Machiavelli observed modern networking culture, the events, the business cards, the polite promises of collaboration, he would not see strategy. He would see compensation behavior from those without the authority to shape outcomes, substituting presence for position. This must be stated clearly. Machiavelli was not opposed to relationships. He opposed the illusion that relationships produce power. For him, only one thing creates power: the capacity to force others to adjust their behavior even when you are not present. Once this is understood, networking loses its appeal, because you realize power is not located in who you know, but in who cannot afford to ignore you, whether they like you or not. The inner circle of power is not opened, it is filtered. This is the truth. Most believers in networking will never accept. No one is given a chance because they are loyal, pleasant, or socially skilled. Those traits only matter at the operational level. At the level where real power functions, there is only one criterion: what is lost if this person is removed. Those admitted to the inner circle are not chosen because they are agreeable. They are chosen because excluding them creates risk. Risk to information, risk to resources, risk to timing, risk to decisions, risk to the structure itself. When a person's absence introduces strategic danger, that person is retained automatically, without asking, without introductions, without relationship-building rituals. This is where every networking illusion collapses. The inner circle does not need communicators. It needs bottlenecks. People who control a critical step. People who gate information flow. People who dictate timing. People whose participation makes alternatives worse if they are not involved. Power does not care whether you are good or bad. It only measures whether you tilt the balance. Someone charming and easily replaceable will never enter the inner circle. Someone difficult, quiet, and socially unpleasant, but structurally irreplaceable, will always remain, even if no one likes them. This is also why inner circles are rarely warm. Warmth creates emotion. Emotion distorts risk assessment. Power requires cold clarity. Members of the inner circle may distrust one another, compete, or quietly resent each other, but they need each other. And in power dynamics, need outweighs liking every time. Observe how real decisions are made, not in crowded rooms, not in friendly earrings, but in spaces where very few are invited, and those invited share one trait. Each holds a piece of the structure that makes the decision dangerous without them. None of them are there because of networking. They are there because they cannot be removed safely. Those obsessed with networking ask, how do I get into the inner circle? The correct question is, what do I control that makes excluding me a mistake? Until that question has an answer, every relationship you have is provisional. You may be invited. You may be included in conversation. You may be smiled at, but you are not retained. And in power, there are only two states, retained or replaceable. The inner circle does not reward effort, it rewards leverage. No one grants power to someone who cannot cost them something if ignored. And that is the dark truth networking will never state openly, because admitting it would collapse the illusion it exists to sustain. Those with power do not avoid networking out of arrogance. They avoid it because networking exposes strategic weakness. Every act of networking leaves a trace. When you appear too often, speak too much, connect too broadly, you are unintentionally drawing a map of your own desires. Power does not need you to explain what you want. It only needs to observe who you pursue, where you show up, and how eagerly you try to be included. Networking turns intention into a public signal, and in power dynamics, the one who reveals intent first is always beneath the one who reads it. Networking also manufactures obligation. Every new relationship carries an expectation to respond, to show up, to maintain contact. Obligation is an invisible tether. The more tethers you accumulate, the less freedom you retain. Power requires room to maneuver, not a web of commitments. Those who hold power instinctively reject anything that forces their decisions to be explained, justified, or negotiated. There is a quieter truth rarely acknowledged. Networking destroys selectivity. When access is opened too widely, control is lost. Power does not keep doors closed to appear aloof. It keeps them closed to preserve the value of access. Easy access is always devalued. Difficulty creates hierarchy. Those with power also understand that networking produces an illusion of equality. Handshake, casual conversations, shared laughter, make those below believe they are on the same level. But power does not exist in equality. It exists in distance. Clear distance stabilizes hierarchy. Networking blurs that distance, which is why it becomes dangerous behavior at higher levels. Networking also consumes the rarest resources of power, time, and attention. Every unnecessary meeting disperses influence. Those with power do not invest time hunting for opportunity. They invest time defending the position that generates opportunity. Any activity that does not reinforce position is eliminated without hesitation. Here lies a paradox outsiders struggle to grasp. The less frequently power appears, the stronger it becomes. The less frequently power appears, the stronger it becomes. Controlled absence creates vacuum. Vacuum forces others to speculate, adjust, and wait. Networking collapses this dynamic through constant presence, converting power into familiarity, and familiarity drains authority. This is why when powerful people observe someone aggressively networking, they do not think that person is proactive. They think that person is searching for a place. And in power structures, searching for a place means you do not have one. True power does not seek validation. It demands consideration. It does not reject relationships outright. It rejects relationships that add no leverage, create no risk when ignored, and fail to reinforce control. That is why networking is seen as a game for lower tiers, not because it is immoral, but because it becomes unnecessary once power exists. When you control timing, rules, or a critical bottleneck, you do not need to look for people. Others approach you carefully, deliberately, and with full awareness of the imbalance that already exists. All debates about networking exist only at the lower levels. At the level of real power, the quest. Ion is no longer who should I connect with, but who gets selected. This is the moment where the frame must change completely. As long as you are asking how to build relationships, you are still standing in the position of someone asking for access. The instant you begin asking who deserves access to you, your position shifts. Power begins precisely at that transition. Selection is not a social behavior, it is a structural act. Those with power do not go looking for people. They create conditions that force others to appear on their own, not because they are attractive or charismatic, but because they control a bottleneck. The flow of resources, information, decisions, or timing passes through them. And when you control the bottleneck, you do not need networking, you need filtering. The difference between networking and selection lies in the direction of movement. Networking moves outward. Selection pulls inward. One expands to be accepted, the other contracts to preserve control. One fears being left out, the other makes exclusion dangerous. Under selection, relationships are no longer the objective. They become conditional rewards. Not everyone is allowed access. Not everyone gets a conversation. Not everyone is informed. Scarcity here is not a tactic. It is the natural outcome of position. And position is built with leverage, not likability. When you shift into selection, the behavior of others changes immediately. They begin to observe instead of approaching. They calculate timing instead of initiating. They ask indirectly instead of directly. This is not because you became warmer or more welcoming. It is because the cost of rejection has appeared. Selection also demands something that networking never teaches: the ability to exclude. Those with power do not attempt to satisfy the majority. They accept being disliked, misunderstood, labeled difficult, or distant. Because every correct exclusion increases the value of being chosen. And in power dynamics, value always concentrates around what is difficult to access. The critical point is this: you cannot occupy the position of chooser while also occupying the position of applicant. These states cancel each other out. The moment you seek approval, you surrender the right to select. Conversely, the moment you are willing to let others wait, speculate, and adjust themselves to approach you, the rules change. Selection does not require visibility, it requires irreplaceability. It does not require frequent presence. It requires that your absence creates a gap. It does not require being liked. It requires others to calculate the consequences of proceeding without you. This is the boundary very few ever cross, because selection forces you to abandon the safe illusion of networking and enter a zone of controlled isolation. In that space, you are not widely known, but everyone who knows you understands exactly why they must be careful. From this point forward, every relationship inverts. You no longer build the network, you define it. Power does not reveal itself through words, it reveals itself through how real situations automatically sort people into higher and lower positions. When you observe actual scenarios, networking and selection stop being abstract concepts. They become visibly structural. In business, the networker is the one chasing opportunity. They meet, introduce, pitch, persuade. They ask for meetings, calls, partnerships. The person in a position of selection does none of this. They hold the value bottleneck, the customer base, the cash flow, the distribution channel, or the final decision. When they go silent, projects stall. When they reappear, everything accelerates. No one asks them who they know. People ask when they will decide. Inside organizations and internal politics, networking appears as alliance building, relationship maintenance, conflict smoothing. The networker needs support to survive. The one in selection needs no faction. They control sequence and timing. A meeting only matters when they attend. A decision is only final when they nod. Others may debate, negotiate, even resist, but they still wait. That is the difference between participating in discussion and defining outcome. In high-level social environments, networking looks like constant presence, regular contact, keeping the connection warm. The one in selection appears rarely, but every appearance alters how others behave. No one is certain what they want, what they think, or how they will respond. That uncertainty forces self-adjustment. There is no closeness here, only distance that is respected across all scenarios. The pattern is always the same. The networker moves constantly. The one in selection causes others to move around them. One asks, "Who should I meet?" The other asks, "Who needs me?" One stays visible to remain included. The other stays silent to force consideration. There is no scenario where networking overturns power. At best, it allows someone on the outside to approach the edge of the table. But the edge is not the center. Selection is the center. And selection only emerges when you control something the system cannot function smoothly without. Watch reactions instead of listening to statements. Who waits for replies? Who adjusts schedules? Who delays decisions when someone is absent? These questions do not require verbal answers. They are answered through behavior, and behavior is always more honest than any claim about relationships. In every real-world setting, the outcome is the same. The skilled networker may be invited. The one in selection is retained. One person can attend endless meetings and change nothing. Another only needs to be absent, and everything slows down. That is the final boundary between social activity and real power. When you see the world through this lens, networking stops looking like a skill worth mastering. It becomes a signal that the decision point is not yet in your hands. And when the decision point is in your hands, relationships reorganize themselves automatically, without invitations, without effort, without explanation. If you have read this far and are still thinking about networking, it reveals only one thing. You are seeking acceptance, not consideration. Power does not respond to effort. It responds to position. Skills, relationships, goodwill. All of them become irrelevant the moment your position can be ignored without consequence. This is the line that must be drawn clearly. If your presence is optional, you do not have power, no matter who you know or how well you speak. A power shift does not occur when you meet more people. It occurs when other people begin adjusting their behavior because you exist. When they wait for your response before deciding. When they delay action because you have not appeared. When they calculate the risk of moving forward without you. This is not a feeling. It is behavioral data. Ask yourself these questions without mercy. If you withdraw, who encounters trouble? If you go silent, what stalls? If you are removed, who pays the cost? If there are no concrete answers, then every networking effort you make is compensation for missing leverage. You do not lack relationships. You lack something that forces relationships to orient themselves around you. A power shift also requires accepting a truth most people avoid. You will be liked less when you stop initiating contact, stop maintaining courtesy appearances, and stop showing up to reassure others. You will be perceived as cold, distant, and difficult. Difficulty. Oh, Reed. That is not a flaw. It is the price of position. Power does not need affection. It needs to be calculated. The moment you stop asking, "How do I connect?" and start asking, "What collapses without me?" the power frame shifts. You stop chasing the network. You begin generating gravity. Others may not enjoy that shift, but they will adjust. Do not confuse isolation with invisibility. Those with power choose controlled isolation to preserve the value of access. They do not disappear. They appear precisely at the right moment, at the critical point with the correct weight. Each appearance carries consequence, and consequence is what produces caution. A power shift does not require you to become louder. It requires you to become harder to replace. You do not need to stand out. You need to control something that forces the structure to recalibrate if it is missing. When you reach that point, networking falls away naturally, not because of virtue, but because it is no longer necessary for survival. From here, only one question remains worth asking. Are you trying to be remembered, or are you building a position where ignoring you becomes a strategic error? If you cannot answer that question through the behavior of others, then the game has not started yet. Power does not end with advice. It ends with a conclusion that cannot be negotiated. Networking is not wrong. It simply does not belong to those who hold power. It is a game designed for those still outside. Those who still need invitations, still need to be remembered, still need recognition. The moment you must build relationships in order to survive, your position in the structure has already been revealed before you say a single word. Those with power do not connect. They are connected too, not because they are friendlier, not because they communicate better, but because ignoring them carries strategic risk. When power appears, it does not arrive with invitations, it arrives with adjustment. Schedules shift, decisions change, language recalibrates. No one explains why. They only understand that failing to adjust is dangerous. Do not deceive yourself into believing that more relationships can compensate for the absence of position. No relationship can save someone who can be removed safely. No handshake turns you into a non-negotiable factor. In power dynamics, there is only one metric: what stalls when you are absent. If the answer is nothing, then all your networking is merely social activity. It keeps you busy. It makes you feel like you are advancing. But it does not place you inside the real game. It holds you at the edge, close enough to observe, never close enough to decide. Those with power do not need you to believe they are strong. They only need you to behave as if they are, and you only behave that way once you grasp a cold truth. Power does not reward effort, goodwill, or sociability. It rewards leverage. It rewards imbalance. It rewards those whose removal forces the structure to pay a price. So do not ask how to network better. That is the question of someone without position. Ask the harder question instead: who encounters problems if I do not show up? If you do not have an answer, then you do not need more relationships. You need a different position in the game. And this is the final cut, with no path backward. Networking is the game of those standing outside power. Power begins the moment you no longer need to play.